Dzień dobry. Może zaczniemy po polsku, a skończymy po angielsku i powiem dlaczego. Ja się nazywam Andrzej Bobiński, pracuję w Polityce Insight i mam przyjemność i honor, żeby porozmawiać z Tonym Houshem, który jest Chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce. I chciałem Ciebie zapytać najpierw, jak się czujesz, jak się masz, jak jest w tym roku w Karpaczu, jak odbierasz tę imprezę i jak jest w AmCham DINER.
No, zawsze jest dobra atmosfera tutaj w Karpacie, dyskusja o poważne sprawy i też prognozes na przykład w ten rok o jak wygląda kilka wyborów, że są ważne dla wszystkich. Ale kolejny rok tutaj w Karpacie oczywiście dyskusja jest o sytuacji Europy Środkowej, wojny w Ukrainie i oczywiście wybory amerykańskie. Ale atmosfera o punktu widzenia gospodarki jest dosyć pozytywna.
So let's switch to English and talk about the US elections, because this is one of the themes that everybody's talking about, especially here. You even had a straw poll where in which Kamala Harris got 67% of the vote. I don't know if this was divided up amongst the swing states, if this was a public vote, but I don't necessarily need to ask you at this point who's going to win, although if you know, I'd love to hear that. But if you don't know yet, I'd like to ask you about how this election will impact the Polish-American relationship and how important is politics and this election for the Polish-American relationship.
On the one hand, this is a very important election for the future of relations between Poland and the United States, as well as Poland and Europe. The United States and Europe. What we, I think, also need to think about too is that politics aside, whether it's a Trump administration or a Harris administration, that Poland, I think, is well positioned to maintain a strong position with the future administration because of our close security ties, because of our deep trade and investment relationship, but also a history of partnership that extends through Democratic and Republican administrations, where some European countries have kind of ebbed and flowed in their ability to build those bridges with successive administrations. Poland has done a very good job of maintaining close contacts with whatever administration is, whether it's been a more liberal Democratic administration or a conservative Republican administration or an administration of a different style, such as under President Trump. So I think that it is an important election that will shape a lot of things. Tactically, I do believe that strategically the U.S.-Poland relationship is very sound.
This is what I wanted to ask you about this glue that keeps us together. Every time we write about the Polish-American relationship, we always, and usually we write when there are problems, we always look at the problems, but at the end of the day, I think we always come to the same conclusions, that it's the glue that sticks us together, which is much stronger than these problems, these everyday problems that we experience. So why is that? What is this glue? How important is this glue for this relationship?
Well, I think over the last 30 plus years, Poland and the United States have found a lot of common ground with similar interests with regard to our national security interests. I think also looking at free markets, economic growth, I think that Poland has been remarkably consistent of pursuing economic policies that have been welcoming to U.S. investors. So in addition to the governmental side of issues, I think that it's important to remember that the hundreds of U.S. companies that are here are also ambassadors for Poland because they're showing that they can invest in Poland, they can have tremendously talented people here, that the operations in Poland can contribute not only to their bottom lines, but overall to the economic relationship between Poland and the U.S. So I think that is an important issue. I think secondly, Poland's commitment to joining NATO, to providing real boots on the ground, and whether it's been controversial or not for people, the fact that unlike many European countries, Poland, whether it's been through United Nations or other operations, has been willing to step forward, and now with its extremely strong support for Ukraine, as well as has been said, the humanitarian superpower action of working with displaced people from Ukraine, I think that Poland has shown itself to be one of the strongest European partners for the United States.
I'm going to mix it up a bit because, I mean, if we're looking at a Harris administration, then probably the changes won't be that big. If we're looking at a second Trump administration, probably there will be a lot of changes. I buy into this point of view that probably it won't impact the Polish-American relationship that strongly, but probably it will impact the American-European relationship very strongly, which will put Poland and this government in Poland in a bit of a difficult situation, because at times it will have to choose sides between its allegiances with Washington DC and with Brussels. How do you look at that, and how big a problem is that?
Well, I think certainly a Trump administration could prove more challenging for the new commission. And that's also going to be a interesting test. Whether it's a Harris administration or a Trump administration, we'll be looking not only at a new administration in Washington, but literally at the same time, the start of a new commission in Brussels. And so that also will take some time to shake out and see where the real power centers are there and who's able to drive agendas and influence things. But ultimately, I think, despite rhetoric, on many occasions, European leadership at the Commission level, the Council of Europe levels, have found ways to engage and work constructively with successive U.S. administrations. So I think that there could be challenges with a Trump administration. I hope that, though, most importantly, whoever is in power on both sides of the Atlantic understands that the U.S. and Europe represents the largest trade and investment bloc in the world. It is the largest bloc of prosperity and stability in the world. Europe has $2.4 trillion in foreign direct investment in the U.S. as of last year. The U.S. has nearly $3 trillion invested in it. So that relationship is absolutely critical to not only peace and security, but to prosperity for our countries on both sides of the Atlantic. And so I think that hopefully will allow more constructive views to ultimately be decided, regardless of the rhetoric that we hear on some of these issues.
Okay, thank you, Tony. My last question, this is a takeout question. You've been here in Karpacz, you've probably listened to some of the discussions. There were a couple of panel discussions about American investments in Poland. What I wanted to ask you about is, what are the three things that sort of stayed with you? What are the three things that you would like for our listeners and people who are watching us to remember about what needs to be done in order to forward American investment in Poland and this good working relationship between Polish and American business?
Well, I think one, as AmCham and our investment communities always says, we need to ensure that we have a really strong, robust consultation process, because when people are talking about investing billions of dollars in some of the projects that we have underway right now, you need a stable strategy and outlook so that people can commit to these long-term projects, because these are not short-term projects, these are generational projects. So we need some predictability and transparency in the consultation process on rulemaking, the tax system, etc. Secondly, I think to realize that with the strong U.S.-Poland cooperation, that there are transformative projects on the agenda. So whether that's civilian nuclear power, whether that's chip and testing and assembly here in Dolny Śląsk, or the final build-out of the cloud, the defense modernization, these are generational opportunities, and they may not always be there. So the time to seize them is now, and to move forward and cement those. And I think the third thing is that Poland has a unique role, I believe, in the new Commission in Europe to, depending on which administration we have, be a bit of an interface to calmly explain, as I mentioned, that there is much more that puts us together than pulls us apart. And I think that Poland and our friends in the Baltic countries, our Scandinavian partners, are well placed to help Europe navigate whatever the new reality is in Washington going forward. But I think the outlook for U.S. investment here is good. I think we'll continue to see significant projects inbound. And most importantly, I think from a Polish business perspective, is that we're seeing more and more Polish companies engaging not as buyers or sellers, but as partners with U.S. companies on technology, on production. And I think this also goes in a great direction to keep those underpinnings really solid for the future.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.